SOUQ morning to you and welcome to SOUQ Business Landscape. How is your morning going? First and foremost, we want to introduce you to our special guest and quickly jump right onto it. My usual anti-usualist guest, Dr. Osamhanze, welcome to the show this morning.
Hans, good morning. Good Nigeria. Good Lagos. A great SOUQ.
You look very nice in blue.
Thank you.
I'll emulate that. All right, quickly, we jump onto it. Business Day, Nigeria's biggest single local investment faces age-old threats. Dangote insists his diesel is best in Nigeria, and they look to Libya and Angola and others for crude oil. So there's this back and forth between, I think, the committee oil and stuff, and they were talking about Dangote's diesel not being up to par. And I think he got upset. He also mentioned that he wasn't going to get into steel anymore. Remember a while ago we reported that he wanted to get into steel and people said he was going to monopolize. So he's upset. He sounded upset that people think he's monopolizing businesses that he gets into, that he's not interested anymore. And he said there are some people that have taken their business and their monies, all their monies to Dubai, that they should please bring it back home and invest in the steel.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Doc?
You see, it's very, very apprehensible for me as a person that there are some forces in this country who profit from the poverty of the generality of the public. That just beats my imagination. Why every country elsewhere are thinking about how to make life good for their children and their citizens. Our own governing elite find joy in seeing that our people rot in poverty. That's the only way to explain these issues. You see, just early this morning, I was talking with you, and I said to him, I said, look, you see, I think we need to really take a position on some of all these issues. This game did not start today. And I make an appeal to our president to open the books. Who were the people that frustrated the 2007 sale of Nigerian Refinery? That has spent billions upon billions on turnaround maintenance. And yet a single diesel or petrol cannot come out of those refineries. Up till we are speaking. And now what we have celebrated as one of the biggest things that has happened to us, even looking from the point of view of the fact that the cost of logistics of bringing diesel or petrol will be taken off and bring some relief to the common man on the street who is already feeling pain, real excruciating pain, from the removal of subsidy. What are we here talking about? Can these people take a moment to look at development all across the globe?
So are you saying
that there were certain times, let's even take their argument that the diesel is low quality. There were times where, of course...
Do you feel like it's an attack on him and his business?
It's not just an attack, it's an attack on Nigerian, not just on him. There were times in this world when you have to import anything from Taiwan, it's another name for an inferior product.
Correct.
Because they started from somewhere. That story is no longer applicable to Taiwan today. So when we are talking about the industry of semiconductor, Taiwan control over 61% of that industry today because they grew from somewhere. So there are some certain people within the Nigerian space who don't want the common man in Nigeria to experience some goods. These are the people, these very vicious sets of human beings
are the ones attacking him.
Are using government institutions to demarket so that they can continue to profit
I see what you
on the head of all of
see what
us
you mean.
who are paying the price and tightening the bet every single day.
Doc, let's move on. Next headline, I would jump to Dangote blames NNPC's forward oil sales for refineries' lack of crude. This is still on the verge of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, but of course, we already
He's
know
striking
all of
back.
all this.
He's
Yes.
striking back.
Yeah, no.
He's defending himself.
No. He doesn't need to defend himself. This is already on the public domain. That in a bid for the last regime to be able to meet up its financial obligations, had to sell some crude in advance.
Yes, you mentioned it one of the
Yes, of course, that's a known fact, and there's nothing wrong about it, because if that was only the source that was available to the government at that time. You see, but what is really very annoying in this conversation is the fact that, yes, we understand that this is there. How do we sit down and rationalize and say, okay, we have sold some already, and let's hope that by the year 2025, when some of all this agreement would have died or ended, then of course we will have some breathing space that Dangote can continue to still import some crude and see how to augment the little one that the local people are giving to him to supplement. That for me will be the conversation. Yeah, because here is actually that Nigerians are worried because people are looking at it. Dangote refinery is almost ready. We cannot see the petrol. But the real issue here is that the fact that it doesn't have crude. Now, importing crude to Nigeria, that can only increase the pump price of petrol or diesel, as it were. But I think that what those in government should have been doing at the moment is to see how they can, as government regulators, give hope to Nigerians.
I agree with you, Doc. Doc, we'll move on quickly. Next headline, Business Day, Nigeria still. Africa countries smaller than Anambra have faster internet than Nigeria. Doc, I really wanted to get your piece on this one. So the worldwide broadband speed reports show that Nigeria's internet speed, 27.6 megabits of data, ranks 132nd out of 220 countries that they checked. This is way, way, way beyond and behind Mauritius, that's 5th, Rwanda, Botswana, the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Yes.
What is the implication of this on businesses? Because we've been screaming about this, internet, poor internet for a long time.
You see, I feel that the problem with us is the inability of those who have the responsibility to do some certain things for government to even see beyond their nose. What are we talking about? The current minister for ICT is just advocating for the cabling of 4G in Abuja and Lagos. We are just thinking about that as we speak.
4G.
4G.
People have gone to 5G.
Oh, yeah. Whereas in Rwanda, for over 10 years now, Rwanda has coverage of about 98% of 4G routing in the whole of Rwanda. So there's no forest you can be in Rwanda that you will not receive a 4G.
Forest.
Yes, in the forest, yeah. And you know, at the time he was doing this investment, a lot of people say, what the heck are you doing? What are you looking for? Even the people who gave him the money, UK that gave him the money, criticized him. But you know what? After that investment, a year after investment, Paul Kagame can show them that this was our IGI before this.
And this is
now this is our IGI now. So it wasn't a waste.
So
That,
if the IGI went up that much and people, still other countries, other nationals across the world still come to Nigeria to do business and believe strongly in it with the poor internet network, how do you you marry the two?
You don't have alternative. Here, over 200 million people, that's a huge population. Huge population. So people are just struggling to get this done. And that is really why the cost of doing business is high. Because all these things are factored into the cost of doing business.
Correct.
So creating that ecosystem for prosperity, I think, is one of the things that we must have to focus on. Yeah, so that we'll be talking about this issue of Nigeria ranking 105 out of 200 of countries that are surveyed for speed, internet speed. And I think it's not good enough. It's not befitting.
It's not. It's quite poor. Next headline, 134% increase in minimum wage set to face hurdles in states. There's something that beats me, though. So from state to state, minimum wage differs. And I'm wondering why. There's 70,000, there's 35,000, there's 40,000, there's 45,000. Shouldn't there be a band, a steady band? If everyone is doing 70,000, everyone should do 70,000. And 134%?
I think there's a lot of politics around setting of wage, as far as I'm concerned. But I think what people do globally is that you have a benchmark of a minimum.
Yes.
So if you are more endowed than other states, you can actually increase what your minimum wage is. So that is the barest you can go. So that's why they call it minimum wage. So a state can decide and say, this is the minimum based on the national law. But given the resource that we have, we can do X, Y, Z. So I can decide as a governor to say, well, if the benchmark is 70 for the federal government, I have more money. And I prioritize my workers.
You can do 200.
I can do 100.
200.
Whatever it is. As long as the money is there to pay.
True.
But you see, what we are also looking at in this minimum wage, because you have states who are struggling ever to pay. But I think the last 1 year has changed those narrative, because with the removal of fuel subsidy, more money gets to the state right now to speak, and they're actually empowered to be able to do some of all these issues. But where that will leave investment in critical infrastructure, like road, hospitals, schools, are the ones that will suffer. Because when you go to some of those states, people who are flouting 70 before even government announcement, they have not been able to invest in roads. They have never been able to invest in hospitals. They have not been able to invest in schools. And yet, they are promising worker salary.
Doc, we'll move on. What a day. So, Business Daily Kenya, microfinance banks suffer record loss as loans shrink. Is it not a problem that should go to the commercial bank? Not a problem per se, but because they're bigger.
Yeah. The issue is, if rates are high, nobody will want to take a loan.
Doc, you're sure about that?
I am very sure about it.
Loan has always come in handy.
Yeah, it comes in handy. But it's better for you not to get into a facility than get into a facility, because, of course, you are collateralizing that facility.
Right.
And the business is not able to pay it. So that's the question to ask, for example. If you have interest rate of 40%, 36%, 30%, how many businesses will actually be able to do business and make that 30% as a profit on investment? There are very few. So rather than take this loan, people are resorting to informal ways of raising funds and finances to do business. And that's also, you see, why businesses are folding, because nobody wants to get into that very high-risk area. Now, what that means is that it's not just record low. We're also seeing that some of these microfinance banks will have to maybe exit the market.
Okay. Business Day on to in South Africa now. Eskom snag hits Discovery Green. So South Africa's finance ministry has appointed a consultant to come up with a plan by August next month to allow utility ESCOM to accept billions in loans designed to help it cut its carbon emissions when the government has blocked it from taking a new debt.
Yeah. It's all debt, debt, debt. I don't know if you were following the Republican convention last week, and you would have seen that same issue of greening America also came back in the conversation. That is putting, of course, debt upon nations.
Yes.
And we are talking about carbon emissions, we're talking about greening, a technology that is so new, quite expensive.
Very expensive.
And this is really putting burden on the globe. But I think it's something that has to be revisited.
I feel like we don't fully have understanding when it comes to greening the economy, because it's, first and foremost, it's quite expensive. We talked about it on the show. It's quite really expensive. But why, I wouldn't say the West now, why are people pushing for everyone to get on the bandwagon?
Of course, it's business. It's business. So, have you read this book by Jenkins? The Confession of the Economic Hitman? How states in the West use corporations to drive their agenda in pauperizing developing nations. If you read that book, it gives you an idea of what this greening issues and conversation is all about. So if, as a government, we are saying that there's a technology that we need to sell, what do? We push the agenda. And that agenda is driven by the West.
So what do we do about that, Doc?
What can we do? Except that nations are to borrow their thinking cap and put on the template of common sense and evaluate what people are selling to you. And if it's not good for you, then you have to make do with what is good for you. Yeah. Really following the bandwagon doesn't really make right.
No, it doesn't. Well spoken, Doc. Financial Express were in Bangladesh. Early birds fail to fly. And then they're talking about new companies. And it is reported that 171 companies see net profit dip 10% in Q1.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about how Bangladesh is doing really, really well. But this comes as a misnomer because it doesn't align with what we have always known Bangladesh to do.
No, it's not a misnomer. It's not to say that they are not doing well. They are still making their money and then of course, growing their economy as it were. But what the report is saying is that, you see, there are some people that you are expecting that you are going to make some certain profit.
And they don't.
Yeah, but you also have to understand that there are factors that will determine what kind of profit you can make and at what time. Here, you're also saying that Bangladesh is not immune against global shocks.
True.
So if I'm the one buying your clothes and now I don't have money to buy, you can only dump it on me. And I can't accept it. So this is the kind of thing that you're finding. That trade was booming at a certain point in time, but I think prosperity needs to return to the world. And the only way for me that can happen is when the world begins to emphasize the value of hard work, and then, of course, consistencies, and then all this funding of laziness that is going on in more liberal democracies must find a way to stop, because that's the only way.
You're right. You're right again, Doc. So on to the next publication. We're trying to make sure we cover grounds. Gulf Times. Doha Bank's 6-month net profit surges 10.3% to 432 million Qatari riyals. So Doha Bank disclosed that this profit from January to June, which is half the year, June ending per se, with financial statements revealing a net profit of 432,000 riyals increase in comparison to 392 in this same year period.
You see, the banks are the ones smiling away with the whole of the profit. I think it's not just in Doha. Even in Nigeria here, we have seen that happen, where banks are declaring very humongous profit, even in the midst of a very tight economy. So bankers are doing well, and I think it's because really the economy is built to run bank today. And of course, I really feel that regulations and interest rate and all these charges that, of course, that are deductible from depositors' money is really enriching the bank.
We need to, maybe we should have SOUQ Bank. We should consider.
It's not a bad idea.
Financial Times London, Biden pulls out of White House race and endorses Harris as his successor. So this is weeks of pressure that came to a head. They decide that the exit is the best interest of the country. But I highlighted this to ask the question: how does this affect businesses that are already doing stuff before this really altering decision by the Democrats?
Well, I think whatever it is good for the interest of the governing elite is seen as what is good for the interest of everybody. But to what extent that is true? The
Republicans would refuse.
Yes, of course, that is it. Because of course it has become real issue. He was becoming uncoordinated in being able to put ideas together from the first debate. And many of his great supporters started to advocate that if we leave this guy here, it's a disaster to the Democrat. So, and of course, pressure has been on him that even his greatest fan and advocate, people like Nancy Pelosi and Obama,
yes,
were the first to put this pressure to say, look, Democrats cannot afford this because they know what a return of Trump will mean for some of the things that they think that they have netted so far. So here is political correctness. And I don't think it's all about national interest. But to say how this is going to affect businesses is also something that we must have to look out for. And don't forget that the campaign slogan for the Republican is American First. And if it's going to be the policy of American First, which means, of course, that's going to affect a whole lot globally, how American post-Biden will relate with other countries of the world. It's believed that, in short, even in the core Republican circles, it is believed that really in the last two years that Biden has not actually been the one ruling. It was Kamala Harris that has actually been ruling.
So now they're asking.
Yeah, because it was in there. So what this means is that you see, it can be a continuation. But again, the question is America really ready for a female presidency?
What does it take, really? It's just a different sex.
Oh, you may not be able to say that. So these are issues that the caucus are going to put into consideration. So whatever it is, it's very hazy in the U.S. right now. And so anybody who wants to do business with America is either slowing down, because you know that if
drastic changes
eventually
policies.
Kamala Harris is coronated at the convention next month to become their flag bearer, and the chances and hope of winning become high, then, of course, you can see a continuation of the Biden policy.
Well, Doc, I wanted to, two questions I wanted to ask as an aside. One of them you had talked about Kamala Harris, it being a continuation and chances being high. But there's also whispers in the background that there's a high chance for Trump to swing it again.
Yeah, but these are all the conversations, because there are a whole lot of factors that have affect American democracy.
Yes.
It's not as plain as people tend to see it in the open. So, for me, foremost election is so close for Biden to be off the ballot.
True.
And that's going to create a whole lot of even discontent within the Democrats. Yes. You see, because for some people who are the core conservative, feels that Obama was a disaster, and giving a black and American another chance may not be something that anybody's going to. These are all issues that are conversation that you're going to be hearing as the game unfolds.
Doc, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We will take this conversation online. Remember, it's #SBL on YouTube and across all social media. We've come to the end of the show. SOUQ Business Landscape continues on Wednesday, 7 a.m. My name is Hans Mbah. Stay with us for more programming.